Kidnapping of the bride. Pumpkin as a sign of refusal. Tying hands of groom and bride. Couple kneels in front of the parents. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Mary, a native Ukrainian who worked for several years as an English interpreter at meetings between Americans and Ukrainians. Today I will tell you about the strangest and the most unusual rituals and traditions in Ukrainian weddings. The wedding day starts very early. The bride is getting dressed, the witnesses are decorating the hall, helping the newlyweds with preparations, or checking if everything is ready for the ceremony. In Ukraine, weddings are celebrated for an average of 2 to 5 days. Some even can celebrate for a week. Wedding day has long been considered special in the life of a couple and is celebrated more grandly than other holidays. So usually all relatives, acquaintances and friends are invited to such an event, everyone possible. This of course depends on the wishes of the newlyweds, but most often there are many people at the wedding. Guests are treated, various rituals and entertainments are held, so one day is not enough to handle everything. By the way, we start preparing for the wedding a maximum of 6 months in advance, but more often 2-3 months. In Ukraine, unlike America, we don't plan weddings for several years. Here everything happens much faster, mostly because it's easier to book a venue for the ceremony a few months in advance, and there is no long waiting period. This also applies to the bride's wedding dress. Custom-made dresses are not popular here, since the dress is bought shortly before the event. We usually choose from the store's assortment. Now about the tradition of matchmaking. It involves the groom or his relatives asking the bride's parents for permission to marry their daughter. The girl's opinion is also taken into account. If the groom was not suitable, he was given a pumpkin as a sign of refusal. In a good case, the wedding was planned. Next, there should be a blessing ritual at the bride's house before going to the registry office. The couple comes to the girl's parents and kneels on an embroidered towel, while the parents bless them 3 times. When the parents have blessed the marriage and the couple has registered at the registry office, the process of the church wedding begins. The newlyweds holding hands enter the church and exchange rings. Then the priest places a wreath on them and the groom and bride make vows to each other. After that, the young couple is given candles, which they hold until the end of the ceremony. Traditionally, this ceremony lasts from 40 minutes to an hour and symbolizes the conclusion of a spiritual marriage. The vows the couple makes, promising to love and be together in joy and sorrow, are particularly important. The next tradition can be involved both during the registry office ceremony and during the church wedding. The newlyweds stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and hold hands. The elders tie the hands of the groom and bride with an embroidered towel. The tied hands symbolize their spiritual connection and shared future. Previously, this towel had to be embroidered by the bride herself, without any help. Now towels are mostly bought, but this tradition remains important and symbolic. Another ancient and popular tradition is the wedding loaf, with which the parents greet the newlyweds after the church ceremony. The groom and bride break off or bite the bread, as according to our traditions, it cannot be cut. It's believed that the one with the bigger piece will be the head of the household. Then the newlyweds salt the bread for each other, and their mothers say the traditional phrase, May this be the saltiest and last salt in your life. This means they wish them a life without quarrels, living in harmony. This entire procedure symbolizes the beginning of a happy family life. When the couple leaves the registry office, all the guests gather at the exit and shower them with flowers, petals, coins, or wheat grains as they walk by. All these items symbolize happiness in family life, wealth, and well-being. Sometimes this task of showering the newlyweds is entrusted to children, which looks very sweet. Another symbolic and interesting tradition is the removal of the bride's veil. This usually takes place closer to the end of the celebration. The groom's mother, that is the future mother-in-law, should perform this ritual. She sits the bride on a chair and, while giving words of advice, removes the veil from the bride's head and then replaces it with a headscarf, indicating that she approves of her son's choice and recognizes the bride as the mistress of the house. Also in Ukraine, a wedding rarely happens without a host. They are hired to make a celebration more fun, organize all the contests, and entertain the guests. The most fun and common ritual used nowadays is the kidnapping of the bride. Usually the kidnappers are guests, relatives, or even specially hired actors. During some interesting event, when the guest's attention is focused elsewhere, the kidnappers take the bride and hide her, and the groom, along with relatives, must find her and bring her back. It only gets weirder from here. Now about the ransom. The groom and the witness arrive at the bride's house, where the bride's relatives arrange contests and quizzes for them, mostly with questions about the bride. If the groom passes all the tasks, he is given the bride. I also want to tell you that Ukrainians don't make a list of gifts they would like to receive. Although it's a very good idea, it's not customary here. And usually each guest gives what they deem appropriate. But often this results in an unpleasant situation, because older people, not knowing what to give, present what they want to give them. For example, dish sets or bed linen sets. And in the end, the newlyweds end up with 6 dish sets, which they don't plan to use, and 8 bed linen sets, which they already had enough of. It's much more convenient when guests, not knowing what to give the amount of money they considered appropriate. Nowadays, this is done more often than giving dish sets, and such a gift is really useful for young family. Usually when all the festivities are over, on the first wedding night, the groom and a bride count the money given as gifts. It's not exactly a tradition, but many do it. Another very good custom is a planting tree. The groom, bride, and all the guests go outside, preferably in the yard where the young family will later live, and plant a pre-prepared seedling in the ground. This symbolizes the prosperity and well-being of the newlyweds. In closing, I tell you about wedding expenses. Here it's customary to split the expenses equally between the parents of the groom and bride, or the wedding can be paid for by the newlyweds themselves if they have money. This way they demonstrate their independence to live apart from their parents. I'm interested to know if there are any unusual traditions at your weddings. Please share with me in the comments.